Hi class, I wanted to post a short video going over your introduction paragraph, which should have your thesis statement as well as the elements that you are discussing or that you're seeking to prove true based on the main ideas in the story and your takeaways. So this is MLA format. So we have the student's name, Amanda Carpenter, the professor's name, Professor Salmon. We have the ENC 1102, freshman comp 2, and your date. Remember, your MLA formatted date will be the day or the month, the day of the month following, and then the year. And then it's all double spaced. I did not double space the following paragraphs just to make the post on the display much shorter. But here's the title: Marxist criticism of O'Connor's "A Good Man is Hard to Find." I chose this sample topic or sample paper because a lot of students miss the idea that you could analyze "A Good Man is Hard to Find" through a Marxist lens or approach. So first things first, Marxist, that lens is based off of Karl Marx's approaches, which deal a lot with capitalism and class, to give you insight on that. So you would look at how the characters portray their class. Are they rich? Are they poor? What does it say about being rich or poor? How are they treated? What's going on socially in the economy at that time? So this student is providing insight on how the story can be read through social class. What is it saying? And also tying in the historical approach in the sense that she discusses the um, American Industrial Revolution, which occurred in the 1800s, which would make it the 19th century for us. So let's read the first paragraph. In "A Good Man is Hard to Find," the protagonist, the grandmother, is concerned with being viewed as a lady. The grandmother's not so subtle manipulative comments, her critical remarks, along with her selfish personality, show that outlook throughout the story, which can be related to the way that the industrial owners manipulated politicians, as well as the stock market having the power to critically alter outcomes by remarks made. A Marxist critic would notice that the grandmother's idea of being recognized as a lady is more about wanting to be recognized as an upper class socialite. So let's break that introduction paragraph down even more. So, a well-written paper will always start with the title of the source. So when she says "In a Good Man is Hard to Find," so right off the bat, I know what story she's discussing. She's going to talk about the protagonist, who is the grandmother, the main character, who really steals the show, is concerned with being viewed as a lady. So that is the topic sentence. The fact that the protagonist, the grandmother, is illustrated or demonstrates that she wants to be considered a lady above all else. If you remember in the story, there's even comments about that if she were to die, they would not mistake her for anything else except for a woman. She was wearing her best dressed, her best attire while traveling on this road trip in the midsummer. Okay? So then the grandmother's not so subtle, manipulative comments. So she's saying, not only am I going to tell you how the grandmother's fixated on being a lady, this is how I'm going to demonstrate that she's fixed on being a lady. So we have reason one: the grandmother's not so subtle, manipulative comments. So we need to hear about her comments. Then number two, her critical remarks. So the grandmother has a lot of criticisms. She's saying this, she would do this with Bailey, that with Bailey, Bailey should do this and that. So we should hear about that in the paper. So her critical remarks, along with her selfish personality. So I should see in the text some evidence of how the grandmother shows that she's selfish. One thing that comes to mind is she brings the cat, even though Bailey, her son, does not want a cat in the car. That would show that she's putting her needs before Bailey and his family's. So that could be something that the students should include in the paper. How is she selfish? How is she manipulative? How is she critical? So I should see your three pieces or your how many ever elements you're using to prove your point. Those should be in your introduction. So as your instructor, when I read this particular part, I'm going to highlight it here. I'm going to put that in green. That's telling me that the student has thought this paper through. This is what the student believes, and this is how the student's going to demonstrate their beliefs. Okay. So the next part, her selfish personality show that outlook through the story, which can be related to the way that the industrial owners manipulated politicians, as well as the stock market having the power to critically alter outcomes by remarks made. So you have her reasons and her beliefs of how O'Connor structured the story, and she's tying it together in a Marxist manner by pointing out that the construction of the story is commenting on or drawing a parallelism on how the industrial owners controlled the politicians. She goes on to say a Marxist critic would notice that the grandmother's idea of being recognized as a lady is more about wanting to be recognized as an upper class socialite. So her thesis is there. Could this be a better thesis? It could, but let's treat this as a paragraph of a thesis because she is very detailed. However, that thesis statement in one big sentence is not there. But this is still a good example of tying the Marxist lens to a good man is hard to find. And it's arguable in the last sentence where she says a Marxist critic. So she's still telling me that she's doing this paper from a Marxist approach, which is ideal, which I like. A Marxist critic would notice that the grandmother's idea of being recognized as a lady is more about wanting to be recognized as an upper class socialite. So if I were to isolate this sentence by itself, she does satisfy the thesis statement in that sense. Does it have the reasons? No, because she put the reasons prior to the thesis statement. So let's go on. The manipulative actions of the grandmother are comparable to the leaders of the monopolies in the Industrial Revolution in America. So to piggyback off of what she just previously stated in the paragraph, she is now about to prove her point. The grandmother is symbolic for the manipulative, for the industrial owners, okay? In the beginning of the story, the grandmother speaks to Bailey, trying to convince him to take the family somewhere that she would much rather go, Tennessee, to visit her connections instead of the vacation to Florida. She says, I wouldn't take my children in any direction with a criminal like that loose in it. I couldn't answer to my conscience if I did. So that's a direct quote. And notice the student puts it in parentheses. Now, at that time, when this was published in 2013, it was acceptable to use brackets instead of parentheses. You, on the other hand, would want to use parentheses. And here you see me replacing them. She uses the news of the misfit murderer, a scare tactic, to urge Bailey to change destinations. So when someone uses a scare tactic, they are trying to manipulate you. So do you see how she is making a statement and then she's using textual evidence to explain it further? If you include dialogue or textual evidence from the story, it should be backing up your claim. It should be showing. You tell and then you show. You tell and you show. There's a balance between show and telling, okay? You always want to show more than you tell because that keeps it interesting for the reader. Please let me know if you have questions on this video. I am available all weekend to help.